Welcome to this session. My name is Mandeep Singh and I am the MD and CEO of CPM India. As you know, this session is going to be about event coordination and managing. We are going to go through the managing the event process, which primarily consists of the implementation and the execution part of it. The focus will be how we implement certain things for the events, and then on the day of the event, how we manage it. I hope you find it interesting, as I'm going to use some real life case study and encourage you to think while we go through this session. I'm going to share my screen and take you through some steps, and I'll keep coming in between to talk about what I feel are the practical experiences as well. So let me just share my screen with you and come straight to the part which is interesting, that is the objectives. What are the primary objectives that we have for this particular session? There are two primary objectives that we are looking at. One is the event implementation and the execution phase. That's the first part. And the second part is going to be learning about the inherent issues which are about the event itself. So what is the various phases of event? Let's look at the whole chain. The first is the initiation when you think of the event. Then the planning stage comes in when you plan for the event. And then is what is most critical when your blueprint turns into the actual reality of implementation and the event itself. If you look at the bottom two areas, which is implementation and event, these are two which are strongly called the production stage and the actual event. One is the coordination phase and one is the execution phase. The implementation phase can be called coordination phase because that's where you are able to bundle in all the resources and are able to one step ahead before you jump into the actual event. I mentioned that how the two stages combined are the real production management stages, which is critical. There's an important link between all the stages that we talked about. In any matrix, there are input matrix, that means all the things that we have to do, and there are output matrix, which means what it results into. So the project plan is an input matrix, that means we create a project plan, and hence what comes out of it is the implementation plan, that means things we have to do. Output is the action plan, and hence we need to do the actions, and then comes the event and the event production. So please remember that we need to have two clear-cut things. What do we need to do, which is the input matrix, and what will come out of it, which is the output matrix from the session. So let's divide the implementation bit and event bit into two separate areas and further look at subsets of implementation. If we look at implementation, we have divided into four areas. Acquiring of all things required, services, goods, human resources, whatever you need to get the event going. Second thing is look at what kind of coordination and logistical support is required. So you have created a list of what all do you need. Second is how do you coordinate and create a logistic thing. The third is how will the whole communication take place? How will the people get to know what they're supposed to do? How will people realize when the timelines are coming? And we'll discuss more about it. And the last but not the least is the important one, which is, are we able to monitor and control the whole event the way we want? And it's very, very critical because that's going to be important. I'm going to focus on the implementation part of it and come straight to it. So let me give you an actual thing in your mind to look at. Let's, for example, all of you think that you have to create an event for the New Year's Eve, right? All of you understand New Year's Eve. All of you know about the New Year's Eve parties which happen. So let's look at the implementation stages for a New Year's Eve party. While I'm talking to you, I want you to think, and I want you to think hard that what all is needed to make this party successful, right? So I am going to take you through these stages, but it's important that you think about the stages as well. Let's go to it and see whether you are able to come up with some thoughts along with me or not. So let's look at the first stage of this planning of New Year's Eve. As we realized in implementation, the first phase is about acquiring good services and how we get human resources and other services together. So what is that we need to look at? First, we need to look at what are other people doing on New Year's Eve. Are there other parties? What kind of parties are there? So we need to understand that. Who all are going to be in our teams and what roles are they going to do? Do I need somebody to look after F&B? Do I need to look after somebody who will sell the tickets to the people? Do I need to make sure somebody looks after advertising and sponsorship? Do I need to look at somebody who will be responsible for the operations? So I need to look at what kind of team and team size do I need. The third thing is budget and investments. So we need to be very clear, all that we are planning, what is going to be the cost of it? How are we going to cover these costs? So what is the plan for the same? Also, we need to be very clear about our objective. Are we doing it so that we all are able to have a good time with a set of friends or like-minded people? Are we doing this with a business objective? Is our client asking us to host the party for them? So the objective needs to be very clear, because according to the objective, we'll also look at our target audience. And that is very important. We should know who our target audience is. And then eventually planning and the effective leadership of the whole project is going to be critical. So I've taken the examples of a New Year Eve party and told you the first step of the performance elements of implementation, which is acquiring goods, services, and human resources. The next, I want you guys to think along with me. What is the next step? The next step is going to be about coordination, logistic, and requirements. What will come under it? Obviously, venue. We need to shortlist the venue. We need to be sure. So we need to be also having into our mind about the weather forecast. Should it be an indoor venue? Should it be an outdoor venue? We should be also conscious of the fact how many people are going to come. Should we have the venue should be enough to host those number of people. Second, it is all about F&B. So what kind of cuisine, what kind of variety, what kind of menu, all that needs to be important. On the New Year's Eve, entertainment is equally important. So we need to make sure that we understand what kind of entertainment is there. And remember, in the last portion, I talked about the TG, the target group. If we understand our target group, we will know what kind of entertainment will be suitable for them. And hence, we'll plan accordingly. And obviously, the most important part, the decor. Are we creating, what kind of elements are we adding in the decor? What kind of experience do we want to give to the people? Audio and visual requirement. There's no point having a great entertainment if we don't have the right kind of stage setup, if we don't have the right kind of sound, if we don't have the right kind of visuals. So it's very, very important that AV setup is thought carefully along with the entertainment and the audience. Now, these are the things which I'm sure everybody understands and everybody will put focus to. We need to look at smaller things as well. Do we need to create some fun games for the guest? Do we need to give any gifts to the guest? Do we need to create a nice photo op? Remember, today is a time for social media. People who are coming for the party, if they click themselves in front of a photo op, they're going to flash it everywhere saying that they were at this party. So it's important that you get amplification, your party gets amplification. So is it important that you should think of a photo op also? Is there anything which strikes you, which I am missing? Do you think in the whole coordination space and the requirements, I have missed something? Think about it. There are multiple points. And one of the important points I want to highlight is the security. You don't want to host a party which gets crashed by other people. So you need to look at the security. You need to make sure that people inside are secure. You need to make sure the entry and exit points are clear. The safety is also very important. So you need to make sure of safety, because in a US party, people get drunk, people can misbehave. So you need to take care of all these things. So that's the second aspect of coordinating the logistics and the requirements for a New Year party. What is the third aspect? The third aspect we talked about was establishing communication infrastructure. And when we talk about establishing communication infrastructure, it is both internal and external. So remember, we talked about having the teams in the first section. You need to make sure you have a schedule of face to face or a meeting on the Zooms or phone or whatever, you know, platform you want to use. But there needs to be a schedule of these meetings so that you are able to know what is happening. Is it following a good timeline? Are you on track? Are you not on track? Also, you have to talk about your party to the TG. So the TG needs to get to know there's a party happening, because unless and until it's communicated to them, they will not participate. So it's important that we handle that situation as well. There's one other important aspect, and that is, if you're doing something like this, you need to look at communication with the sponsors. There is an expense going, there's a right kind of TG available. You might get people who would like to be keen to be associated with it. You might get a liquor sponsor, you might get an event sponsor, you might get a gift sponsor. You never know what kind of sponsors you can get it. The third is people who are already going to buy the tickets to come into these party. They become your already guests. So you need to communicate with them as well, and you need to communicate regularly with them. You have to remind them if there is any dress code or what kind of theme you're following. You need to tell them 48 hours ahead and making the excitement. You need to inform them what kind of entertainment is going to be there, what should they expect. You need to encourage them to let them know what time are you expecting them, what is the time for the party. So all these communications are very, very important. Last but not the least, all the people who are going to provide services to you, you need to establish communications with them. They need to know when do they need to come in, when do they need to do the first check, when do they need to show you the sampling, when do they need to make you taste the food. So all these communications are equally important, right? We come to the last one. I hope you are also making your points and you are also adding to the whole list, which is important. Last is monitor and control, where you are able to see whether you are on track. And I'll give you some tools for that. I think timelines is critical. And let me explain what I mean by timelines. Timelines doesn't mean uh, this thing needs to happen by Wednesday. Uh, in our world, we also talk about day zero. If the party is day zero, then you should know that on -3 day, your closures should happen on how many things. On -7 day, your closure should happen on which all things. On -10, your closure should happen on what all things. So let's take an example. The venue closure probably need to happen on -90 days. 90 days before the New Year party, your venue should have been closed. That's the kind of timeline we're talking about. As we come closure, you need to have the checklist ready. So each department should have their own checklist. F&B will have their own checklist. Decor will have their own checklist. Entertainment will have their own checklist. AV guy will have his own checklist. The production guy will have his own checklist. The person who's managing the guest will have his own checklist. And hence, there will be checklists which will be made. Also, on the day of the party, you are hosting the party, you need to have a list of all your service providers with their phone numbers and the backup phone numbers. It's not possible that your flowers are supposed to come in and you're calling the person who's responsible, and if he's not picking up the phone, or if his phone is busy, or his phone has battery is gone, you don't have another number to call to check what is the status of the flowers which are supposed to come to the venue. There has to be reporting of red flags. So you need to have a system. If this doesn't happen, how should it get escalated within your team? So let's take the example of flowers only. The flowers hasn't reached in time. Who needs to inform you when? And how will it get escalated to you within your system and within the system of the service provider as well? So there needs to be reporting of red flags, alerts. You should also consider very, very smartly a safety announcement while the party is there. So you need to look at safety and you need to look at all permissions and approvals. You need to make sure you have permissions from the authorities to do a party till late night. You need to make sure there's a permission that you can serve liquor or alcohol there. You need to make sure that if there is a live performance of artists or entertainment, there is a proper permission taken for that. So all these approvals and permissions are important. I'm going to stop share for a while and talk straight to you. The idea which I'm trying to create is I can tell you what are the stages in implementation, and that's easy for you to absorb. But I want you to think of an event and then look at these stages, because then you'll be able to attach more meaning to these, and hence it will be more useful. I hope you're enjoying this, because we are getting into the event stage as well, and that will be the critical where you will be able to probably think of more things. Let me share my screen again and come to the next one, which is the event stage. So the event stage, and we looked at 4 stages in the implementation. There are 4 stages in the event stage as well. So the first is monitoring the service delivery. Second is the logistical operations, reacting to the changes and problems which are happening during the live, and implementing the contingency plan if necessary. And I'm going to take the same example of the New Year's Eve, and we are going to look at these stages. Please do remember that we have already prepared the implementation. So if you'll recall, we did all the possible combinations, what is required in the implementation. Now let's look at, we are on the actual event, and how do we crack the event uh, with the New Year's Eve party. So let me look at the first one, inspect and monitor service delivery. How will we do this at a New Year's Eve party? First of all, a recce to the venue. Unless and until you don't go to the venue, unless and until you don't go yourself have a look at the venue, your planning and your implementation will be incomplete. You need to understand the venue. You need to look at where will the guest enter from, what is the safety exit, where will the food be served, where will the dancing happen, where will the artist perform, and there's so many other things which you'll need to look at. So that is what is important. Also, please check the references of your service providers. If you're taking food from someone, has he done this kind of thing for somebody else? Can you talk to them and find out what was the feedback? Have you done a food sampling yourself? Do you have that confidence? What kind of food and what will it taste like? Right? Very, very important is the timeline for the setup. If at the venue where you're planning to do your New Year Eve party, do you know how much time do you need to do the setup? You want to open the gates to your invitees around, say, 10 o'clock. But if you need 12 hours to do the setup, then you need to be sure that you get the venue at 10 in the morning, or 9 in the morning, or 8 in the morning. Do they have a function in the morning? Will they be able to give you the venue? So these kind of timelines for the setup is very, very important, right? Have you done the food tasting? Has the caterer shown you the sample of what all is going to be served? What is going to be the entertainment flow? Do you have multiple artists? Do you have a single artist? Is it a mix of performers and the DJ? How will they sync in? Do you have the master of ceremony? Has he or she been briefed about what needs to be done? What should be the flow of the entertainment? And that's important that you understand. New Year's Eve is all about building a crescendo. You build a crescendo towards the midnight, and then the party starts rocking from there. So you need to be sure about that. We also talk about sample packaging. If the gifts are being there, have you seen how they'll be wrapped? If the Decor is being done. Are you aware what kind of decor or dress code is there? Is there a dress code? Has that been communicated to people? That is going to be very, very, very important. And then the close monitoring of all these aspects, that are these in place and are we going to be on the even day if everything is under control. So this is about inspecting and monitoring, but the next is on the day of the event, what kind of operations are going to happen. So the party is supposed to happen at 10 p.m. and you need 12 hours for setup. So at 9 a.m., your first truck should start arriving. And the reason why I'm saying 9 a.m. because it will take some time for the truck to offload the equipment and everything. And if you need 12 hours for setup, the setup should start quickly, right? What time will the sound check happen for the entertainers? What time will the F&B guys will come for setup? By what time should your tables be laid? What time should your decor be done? Are you planning to do a dress rehearsal for something? Should you do a dress rehearsal for something? And then if you have these in control, then eventually you will also say that 10 o'clock gates open. Uh, I say this to all my colleagues, friends, when we do our events, and I'll share this with you also. The first 1 hour is extremely important in any event. As soon as the guests come in, there has to be a powerful impact which is created. He needs to feel that he's comfortable. So the right kind of air conditioning temperature, the right kind of lighting, the decor should look good, the food and service should be immediately done to him. The first 1 hour is really powerful to create that impact, and it's important that we do that. So we call it welcome impact. You have to take care of the welcome impact. The event flow needs to go exactly the way you had planned it. If you wanted that 10 o'clock, the gate should open, at 11 o'clock, entertainment should start, then the event flow should start taking on from there. It's very, very important that one or two of your team members are interacting with the guest and observing them. Very often, before any of the guests complain, just by your observation, you can know that what's going to go wrong. If there are too many guests who are trying to look uncomfortable and are trying to, you know, doing their collars like this, then there's the first sign that they're feeling hot and we should do something about the air conditioning. If there are too many glasses of drinks which are left untouched, there's something wrong with the drinks or there's something wrong with the temperature of the drinks. There must be some of your team members who should be out there observing and interacting with the guests that what is happening. I think the third aspect is extremely important, that we should be able to react to various problems. Now, the problems can be the guests come late, so the whole program starts with a delay. So there's a delayed start. You need to be ready. So which means you should have a list of your acts which you can afford to miss, so that in case there is a delayed start, you will compromise on that. What about if some guest gets another extra guest along with them? Have you prepared for it? Are you going to charge him on the spot? Are you going to let him in unnecessarily without any charge? It depends how you have planned for it. So it's important that you plan. There could be special requests. If you haven't asked for dietary requirement from guest, you might get a request from a guest that he's diabetic and therefore he needs a different kind of food. Are we prepared for it? What should we do? That is the kind of thing which we should be ready with. That is the kind of thing which we should have a plan for it. What if the chief guest or the main performer arrives late and there is a change in the event flow? Do you have the flexibility to change the event flow? So while you are creating the event flow, have you thought about it? It's important. And then obviously, if there's shortage and excess of something and there is a gate crashing, so the next is implementing contingency plan as necessary. So typically in a case of ours, which is the New Year's Eve party, we probably need extra chairs and tables as a contingency. So we should have some of them kept aside. We might need extra food and drinks depending on what is being consumed and if we have more people coming to attend the party. If due to any weather, this thing, if we need to put food somewhere else, or if we need to move guests somewhere else, do we have an alternate space option? Do we know that if our food was supposed to be served outdoors and because of extreme weather conditions and that can't happen, do we need to change it somewhere else? Uh, what if we have more people? What should we do? Should we need an alternate space to open another room or another hall to adjust those people? And believe me, sometimes even less people is a problem. And you might have to call in your friends that I have less people. Why don't you come and enjoy this party so that the place looks crowded? So uh, we looked at the implementation phase with performance elements, and we have looked at the event phase with the New Year's Eve example. I hope you enjoyed a live example like this for both the phases, which is implementation phase and the event phase. I'm sure you have your own notes as well. And I'm glad if you have been able to put things which were either in common or some things which you think because of paucity of time were not explained. Uh, let's come to the last portion now, which is very, very important. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges which can obstruct us if we don't pay attention to it? And let's talk about them. So typically there are, I feel again, 5 areas which we need to be wary of. The first is operational plan detail and the performance. You must have heard this phrase, and it goes both ways. That devil is in the detail. I also feel God is in the detail. It typically means if things go wrong, they usually go wrong because we haven't paid attention to the detail. So it's very, very important that your operational plan is as detailed as possible. It's really, really important. The second is implementation, knowledge, and performance. It's extremely important that we understand that the knowledge of all our people should be same. Uh, People should attend meetings regularly. They should know what is happening. So therefore, there has to be a strong communication between them. Uh, it needs to be important that we understand, is there a need of expert to come in? It is not important sometimes that our people will have all the expertise. So is there important to get an expert in the team? So that is very, very critical. The third, we did talk about a little bit. Are there enough alerts in the system to give you if any plan is being deviated? It's very, very important that you understand that deviations need to be of extreme importance and you should notice them immediately. The second last, implementation conflict, is very important, and I'm going to spend a little more time on this. See, we need to understand we are in the business of people, right? Event is all about people organizing something for other people. So there's bound to be a lot of people management skills required. Uh, Conflicts usually happen. There are two kinds of conflicts. One is a cognitive conflict. So cognitive conflict is all about when there are different ideas floating around. I have an idea, you have an idea. We are brainstorming how the thing needs to be done, and when ideas differ, but it's all towards productive output. We want the best thing for the. We want the best idea, or we want the best input, and hence there are different inputs which are coming in, which is cognitive conflict. Then there is affective conflict, which is not about the ideas, which is not about difference of the ideas. It's about difference of how people think. It's about how different people behave. Or in simple terms, it could be clashes of personalities, which is another conflict which can be a problematic, right? Uh, Garvin and Roboto have a 3C concept of resolving some of the conflict to get to decision making. And I think that it's very important. They encourage cognitive conflict. So cognitive conflict is good. Uh, Affective conflict is not good. The cognitive conflict is good. Then they say if there is cognitive conflict, there should be consideration. Consideration means that everyone should get a chance to be able to participate, to be heard, and hence everybody gets equal say. And then there is closure, which means you are able to come to a conclusion that what will be taken into consideration and how things will happen. So they talk about encouragement of the cognitive conflict, consideration, and closures. And then these three C's can help us to handle the implementation conflict as well. And last but not the least is implementation communication. In the last 30 minutes, I have talked about the importance of communication, and you will hear about the importance of communication in the other sessions as well. But communicating rightly with people, uniformly with people at the right time is the key. And it is not about uh, uh, how to communicate, it's about a process of communication. So this brings me to end of this session. I hope you enjoyed the session. Uh, I hope you enjoyed the lessons which you have learned for planning the New Year's Eve, and that will help you to understand the stages which we talked about in the implementation stage and the event stage. Uh, I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I'll be joining you sometime soon for the next session. Thank you, everyone.